The other option that I'm hoping the county will consider is to go north out of St. Stephen on the existing route and take that road straight out to County Road 1. Now, to me, this is a common sense thing. If you look at this from an aerial view of this road, this is, to put it politely, is a jacked up situation, the way this road is routed. Now, I'm thinking long-term, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren is what I'm thinking. These farmers around my area, they're gonna die. All of us in this room are going to die. And the legacy that we need to leave behind is that we correct this road. These farmers, as they die, the children aren't gonna want these farms. There's more money in planting a house than there is in planting corn. This is all gonna grow up. I have seen this time and time again from being an old trucker. Minneapolis is actually a very small town. If you look at it, it is the existing towns around it that have swallowed it up. And that's what's going to happen down the road with this. We need to think long-term, please. I'm asking the county to look at this project, back away from what you're doing. Stop, back up, take some time. If it takes a year or two, this road's been here for 125 years, it's not going anywhere. If you need, and I understand, I realize this is always comes down to one thing, and that's money. It's always a money thing, and you're banking on pennies on a dollar to do it now than what you will be doing 50 years down the road when you are gonna have to change this road. You are going to have to, sooner or later, it's gonna happen. And I know from the short time I spent with Joe, he's got enough common sense to look at this project. And I know he sees it, but I think his hands are tied as far as financially, the money it's gonna.
Here. I am.
Thank you. Now let's stand and do a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item of business is the approval of the agenda. We do have an addition to the agenda. Mike, you want to just share?
I will. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's item E16, paper copy in front of you. It's setting a work session to discuss the Jail and Justice Center for next Tuesday. That's January 28 at 9:15 a.m. I think previously checked with everybody, and that should work.
So with that addition, we're looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Clark has moved the agenda. Commissioner Notch has seconded it. Any discussion? Not all those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. The consent agenda then now has 16 items on. Any discussion or anybody want anything pulled from the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull item number 7 off the agenda.
Okay.
That's dealing with the agreement with household hazardous waste marketing.
Okay, E7. Any,
With that, if nobody else has anything to pull, I'll move all the other items.
okay,
Second.
motion's been made to approve the consent agenda except excluding E7. It's been seconded by Commissioner Clark. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is adopted.
Okay.
So
Mr. Chair, just quick,
E17, yep, go
on the
ahead.
motions, are you getting a signal from Commissioner Lenzmeyer? Okay.
Aye.
Give us a thumbs up on that, please, when we got an aye, okay?
And
All
Mr.
right,
Chair,
we
I
can
think
see
he
your thumb.
actually has to say aye
Yeah.
for Randy.
I can hear a faint aye, so I don't know if
Yeah.
that's something on our end or the other end.
But you're right, you got the visual.
He did say aye.
Okay.
Go ahead, Commissioner Persky.
Okay, yeah, Mark, say, I wanted just some clarification on what's gonna be happening with the marketing, but more importantly, with the change in the hours. You know, we've had a concern about having the household hazardous waste process and building open on Saturdays, and it looks like that's gonna now be happening for 2025, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Board, it is open as of January 2nd. We have been following the schedule of a Monday through Saturday, 8 to 5:15 p.m. So staff have full, or 7 to 5:15, Monday through Saturday. So we have fulfilled that request of the board.
Okay, and I'll tell you what, I think that's awesome, and I really think that what's going to happen is folks are going to realize that Saturday is available, and as we have it available to other counties, especially folks towards Benton and Sherburne that are a good distance, because it's on the west side of St. Cloud area, that'll give them the opportunity that just Saturday, if I'm doing the things around the house, around the garage, in the yard, or whatever, and I've got some chemicals I need to drop off, I can bring them on Saturday because I've got time to do that. So, that's something we've been looking forward to having happen. And I see we've also put in a little bit of money just to promote that as well, which I think is a good thing. Likewise, perhaps even I see getting it on the radio. If you and Shelley maybe want to do a radio show with JON or Chasm or KNSI to tell them that, hey, we want that stuff. I know it's so easy for folks to have that stuff sitting in the garage with good intentions, but the problem is our busy lives don't allow us necessarily always to get over there and take care of that. And then, of course, eventually it goes in the big can and the cover goes over and out of sight, out of mind. But we don't want that. We don't want that going to the landfill, and we don't want that going to the incinerator. We want to take care of those chemicals appropriately. So appreciate, opening and I don't know if we need to sound the trumpet about that, but at least let people know that they got Saturdays to bring that stuff to us. So thank you. With that, I'll move that item.
Okay. Is there a
Second.
second? Okay, Commissioner Clark seconds the motion, and Commissioner Persky moves it. As long as we're talking about that item, if you wouldn't mind, I think we need to toot the horn because we've certainly heard from a lot of people that wanted that. So if you wouldn't mind, just send an email to us outlining the hours and the days and all that stuff that we can do it in our own columns and things that we do for the outreach. Commissioner Clark?
Yes, and maybe remind us when there's a social media post so we can leverage that. Really excited to see the change in hours. And yes, if people don't know about it, they're not going to come. So appreciate the package you put together, building on successful work from the past and helping people see what they can be doing now.
Mr. Chair.
And then on the budget, go ahead, Mark.
I was just gonna, with the social media, we do have it posted out on the county website, our new hours. We do have it out on our Facebook page, so we have put it out.
And Mr. Chair, I bring that
Commissioner
up
Clark?
because our social media posts often have nice pictures, et cetera. So if we're able to share those, sometimes they get more information, and then we get to add our piece as well. So thank you.
And for our purposes, I don't go on the website. I ask department directors because I don't have time.
No, this is
So
Facebook.
Maybe, or
Facebook.
I don't go on Facebook either, so I mean.
We'll
just
get the
if you can
messaging
share
to
it
you,
with us.
but
Yeah, we
Send
need,
a clip.
I mean, Mr. Chair, your point's well
Commissioner
taken.
Clark.
I need to be reminded. That's why I'm saying it. I
There
don't
you
go on
go.
Facebook hardly ever, but
Yeah.
I will use them if I know they're there.
Thank you. And then the score tax, is that the 25% commercial tax or the 8% on commercial? That's, the score doesn't come from that?
No.
Explain where score comes from.
Score comes from the state of Minnesota, Mr. Chair. It's the Select Committee on Recycling and the Environment. So the state looks at populations and does a calculation, and each county gets a certain amount of score dollars. And the county, I believe last year we had an increase in score dollars. So that should be additional dollars coming from the state that we utilize for many of our programs, both household hazardous waste and solid waste.
We, again, as a reminder, and as I'm continue to learn things, remind us, what the 8% commercial tax goes toward, not now, just in the memo if you want to, 8%, the 8% commercial tax that we add on, the property tax fee, what that is and where that goes. Just do a quick one-page summary because I forget, and some of us might, but I'd like to
Can we?
refamiliarize with that.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Clark.
if we could, I think we've switched roles now. I'll just keep asking questions.
Sure.
If you could just add in, also reminding us so we can help remind others that we're getting next to none of our SCORE money. We want more of it allocated, which is something we've all been advocating for quite a while, so we can help remind people that that's a part of what our advocacy is. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so with that, we have a motion and a second to approve item on the consent agenda E7. Any additional conversation? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 I heard an aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Then, the next agenda item is Environmental Services to conduct a public hearing. Shelley?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Shelley Benson, Environmental Services Director. I have Mark Lateral, the Environmental Health Supervisor, with me. We are going to go through a public hearing. We have a few items. The two items that we have are related to the committee appointments that were sought and the discussion of committees and appointments and various things. And there have been the two committees that at present, Delinquent Refuse Appeal Panel and what's the other committee I'm forgetting? And the Delinquent Refuse.
Or DSF panel.
The Environmental Service Fee Fund Panel, Appeal Panel. So those two panels have not been utilized in quite some time. Therefore, we decided to change and amend the process as requested by the board to do stuff, to take all of those appeals internally first. And we are here to adjust the resolution that's required as well as the ordinance. So the ordinance requires a public hearing, and Mark Lateral is here to review the public hearing process with you.
Mark?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, as Shelley said, we're here this morning to hold a public hearing. This is item F1 on packet page 65. The public hearing is needed as we are requesting an ordinance amendment to the existing ordinance 188. Back in March of '97, the county board adopted ordinance number 188. This established an environmental service fee fund environmental service fee to fund the environmental programs which protect the health and welfare of the Stearns County citizens pursuant to state mandates governing solid waste management. The ordinance includes the establishment of the environmental service fees for the Stearns County, procedures for setting up and modifying the amounts of the environmental service fees payment, and collection methods and establishment of the appeals process for generators of solid waste. Section 8.05 of the said ordinance has been reviewed and language changes are being proposed to amend the membership status of the environmental service fee panels to reduce the committee appointment burdens of the board. With that, ordinance, I lost my number, 687 has been drafted, which then will amend the original section 8.05 to change the language and the consistency of the appeals panel to 2 representatives from the county auditor's treasurer and 1 from the county assessor's office. Again, the purpose of the panel would be to hear and decide appeals relating to the environmental service fee, and the decisions of the panel would be final. So,
Okay, because it's a public hearing, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody here wishing to share some thoughts on the proposed ordinance change? Anybody here? Not seeing anybody here?
Got to ask 3 times.
The former chair is helping me. So I asked once, is anybody here for public input? Is there anybody here for public input? Seeing none? I did that 3 times, didn't I?
You did it.
Oh,
You
good.
did
Thank you.
great.
I didn't count, so I want to make sure. So hearing that, I'll close the public hearing. And then any further discussions, or Mark, you want to share anything more?
Mr. Chair, Board, I just wanted to let the board know that I did not receive any comments from the public from the posting in the paper, so.
Thank you for reminding us of that part. So the appeals, my understanding is from our conversation, there have been no appeals filed for at least a year or more.
I would say more than 10 years, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So the chances that you guys are going to meet are pretty slim. Okay. At some point, I do think I suggested to Mark, 1, we should look at this, in my opinion. Do we really want to be the collection agency for garbage companies? Do we need to be? And 2, because that would do away with this whole appeal process in the first place. 1, there aren't any appeals being made, and I don't believe there's any companies submitting their bad debt to the county to collect anymore. Or am I off?
No, I don't believe we've had any companies submit. In this case, it was, I think maybe it was less than that, 6 years, 2018, 2017, I think was the last time we had a company submit.
So I think it would be appropriate just to do kind of a review of that, and to some, on your end and then on our end, because in my opinion, the county should have never been a collection agency for bad debt for a garbage company in the first place. And now that it's not being used, I understand why it was put in the ordinance at the time, because the director at the time kind of wanted some ownership, because, you know, he was positioning that it's not the people's garbage, it's the county's garbage. And so I get that, but we're way beyond that now. So we maybe should look at that. So if you can do a kind of a 10,000-foot overview on that, and then Mike can decide how we would handle that. Mike?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, as we were preparing this, we actually had that discussion that, you know, maybe this is the first step towards eventually eliminating this ordinance. So we can definitely do that.
Because I'm not sure if other counties, well, I'm sure somebody does it someplace, but within Tri-County, I don't think they do, but I'm not positive. But let's do an overview, and then we can decide. Commissioner Clark?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think Commissioner Notch had his hand up first. So.
Commissioner Notch?
Just for clarification, is that this ordinance, or is it the next? It's the next
Well,
one.
it's
next
tied in.
liquid.
Yeah.
Right.
To me,
But I'll move this adoption of the ordinance number 687 to replace 8.05 and 188.
okay, motion's been made.
And Mr. Chair, I'll second with a comment.
Commissioner Clark seconds it and has a comment.
I thought streamlining it made sense, and who's on there makes sense because it has to do with the fiscal piece. My only caveat, I think it is good if we don't need it, but we do when people owe money and they don't pay us, then there is that mechanism. We see it in a number of places. So I think we need to really take a look at that first, but 10 years is a long time for there to be no action on this whatsoever.
And thank you for that, Commissioner Clark. I don't think it's, they're not paying us. We collect it and pay
Right.
the garbage company.
No.
Or am I got that wrong?
Mr. Chair, the one you're talking about is the second
second
part, which
one.
is the resolution. This is the Environmental Service Fee Appeal Panel.
Okay.
So the environmental service fee is something that is charged for all of residents, and then the commercial parties get the 8%. In this case, the auditor's office, when we chatted with them about assessment, stated it's good to have an appeals process.
Yes.
And this was the appeals process that we reviewed with them, and they said, let's keep this in place at this point, and we can have a larger discussion
Right.
at a future time.
And if we change the next item, then that potentially could go away.
And Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Clark.
I think due process and appeals is an important function if there is something to appeal, right? I mean, if there is, it really is, because otherwise, then there'll be some confusion about what to do. I like the idea of doing the 10,000-foot look, so.
So,
Mr. Chair, just,
Commissioner Clark, I mean, Persky.
just
We
a-
do look alike.
Yeah,
Yeah, you do. Your hairstyle is the same.
Just a comment, you know, these policies and procedures that have dated, I think all of us also maybe have served as a weed inspector. I think I've been a weed inspector over 10 years, never had a uniform or a badge, but never had to look at a weed yet. But, you know, we should maybe look at some of these things and how we do those, okay? So by all means, let's take a look at this.
Wait, the cannabis is coming into effect.
That is a different type of weed, though.
That might be a different committee.
There was a motion to adopt ordinance number 687, amending ordinance number 188, Environmental Service Fee Ordinance. Motion and second has been made. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Yep, needs the voting aye. Passed. Okay, next item is the consideration of the adoption of resolution updating delinquent refuse account certification and appeals policy.
Correct. Mr. Chair, board members, back in 2001, the county board adopted resolution 0172 outlining the current delinquent refuse account certification and appeals policy for Stearns County. The proposed resolution in front of you today updates the terms of that policy. It will, the proposed policy will provide language corrections to references for the current haulers, amends membership of the appeals panel, clarifies the meeting frequency requirements, and removes mandatory language of certifying the county outstanding unpaid refuse accounts. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd ask the board to approve the resolution as proposed.
Okay, any questions?
Mr.
Otherwise,
Chair,
a
I'll make a
motion would be in order.
motion to approve.
Commissioner Clark moves to adopt the resolution updating the certification and appeals policy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Notch seconds it. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next, we have the presentation by Mike Williams with the MOU. Mike?
Thank you, excuse me, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a proposal for the board to approve the memorandum of understanding between the University of Minnesota, actually University of Minnesota Libraries and Stearns County. We've considered a similar MOU back in August of 2023, and then the board took no action at that time, and then subsequently asked for this to come back to your agenda. And I'm not going to present too much other than to introduce Dr. Man, I'm not doing very good speaking. Dr. Brittany Merritt Nash from the College of St. Ben's and St. John's, who provided us with the presentation that you saw in your package, and so welcome. Please introduce anybody else you might have with you and tell us whatever you want.
Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and board members. My name is Brittany Merritt Nash. I am an assistant professor of history at the College of St. Benedict and St. John's University, and I have with me Michael Corey from the University of Minnesota Libraries. So the background to this request is in 2023, the slide I gave had the date incorrect. In 2023, students of mine at the College of St. Benedict and St. John's University who learned about racial covenants and other classes that they took on a national scale wanted to see how many existed in Stearns County. So they used Stearns County's ArcaSearch database, which has digitized property records from as far back as the county property records go. And they located 101 historic racial covenants in Stearns County through that database. But because there are some limitations with ArcaSearch, particularly with its optical character recognition search to look for keywords, they were not able to find every racial covenant that existed in Stearns County. And so they ended up with an incomplete data set. And so we learned that the University of Minnesota Libraries has a proprietary software system that actually can run property records through that software and locate covenants that my students missed. And so this is where Michael Corey comes in, and I'll let him take over.
Hi, Commissioners. Thank you for having me here today, Mr. Chair. I'm the technical lead at Mapping Prejudice, as Dr. Nash says. We developed this process essentially to sift through historic property records. We started doing this in the Twin Cities, and we were really excited to get outreach from the St. Cloud area because a lot of the research that's been done on this has been in big cities, and there's very little understanding of what the scope of racial covenants are in smaller cities. So this is a great opportunity, and we're really just here to provide technical support on this and let Dr. Nash and her students do what they do. And the way it works is we get sort of a bulk dump of the property records, and that's why the MOU is between us and the county, is that we take custody of the records so we can run them through our system. And then we show those records that we think have racial covenants to volunteers who then confirm yes or no, this is a covenant, or if it's something innocuous, and help us map those so we can get them on a map and add them to our database for the state and increasingly the country. As you can see in your packet, we're not requesting any fee waiver this time for covenants discharge. That's a separate process. We're just here to help with just finding them so we know what the scope of this is in the county. And we currently have MOUs with 11 counties, including Sherburne, Anoka, Dakota, Carver, Washington, Olmsted, Ramsey, Hennepin, Milwaukee, and we're really looking forward to working with Stearns County. So thank you, Commissioners.
Just for the record, please state your name so we have a name with the voice.
My apologies. My name's Michael Corey, and I'm with the University Libraries at University of Minnesota.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mike?
I might just add that the changes in the MOU since the last time is that, as Mr. Corey, Dr. Corey, I don't know which, I'm sorry. There's no request to waive fees. They've secured other funding for that. And all of the records that we're talking about here are public information. It's really just an agreement that we provide them in a different format than we typically would, I think, if I can summarize it that briefly. And so there's really virtually no cost to the county in entering in this MOU.
And then the last thing I'll say is that we were able to secure some support from the community in support of this request. So you should have in your agenda packet a letter from the St. Cloud Area Association of Realtors, who represents the realtors in St. Cloud, who are supporting our request. And then also the Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation, which represents 250 businesses and community leaders in central Minnesota, who also wrote a letter of support for our request. Thank you.
Okay. And I see Chad Martinez here. Chad, you were involved with this in the past. Anything you want to add to that or clear? Okay. Are there any questions from the board? Commissioner Notch.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. My question basically is the ultimate goal of doing this is?
The ultimate goal is just to understand how many racial covenants existed in Stearns County. My students have learned about the existence of racial covenants in other cities around the country in classes that they've taken. It's pretty commonly taught in history, political science, economics, sociology courses. And they were just curious to learn how many racial covenants were in the area that they live and where they learn. And so they would just like to know at the end how many there were.
Commissioner Clark, Notch, are you done?
Yeah, no,
I get to be everybody today.
I was going to ask a question, so I'm just getting ahead of myself. So then
I'm letting them ask questions
you find out
first.
there's 150. Then what?
Then we're done. And then the students have their data set, and then they can put it on a map, and then the University of Minnesota will be able to have that on their map as well. We already have, again, 101 covenants, and we know where they were. It's just an incomplete map, because when developers would come in from outside the area and put racial covenants on a new development, like say in the 1930s, they would put them on every house. But because my students weren't able to find every covenant using ArcaSearch, because again of that OCR, the limitations with it, we have a map right now that just has in one neighborhood, a covenant here, a covenant here, a covenant here, and we know that's not how they historically operated. And so it's just to help them finish filling out their map and finishing that data set.
So you get the number and you put it on a map, and then who's going to use the map?
Would you like to talk about that, Mike?
Well, I think definitely people in the community will be interested to know that, but what we know is that we get contacted all the time by economists, other researchers who want to use this data to sort of examine what are these patterns over time. Like I said, most of the work that's been done on racial covenants has been in big cities, and so I think there's an impression sometimes that these things only happen in big cities, then I think it's part of like just understanding better what were the true scope of these things, that these did occur in every town in the United States.
But you will not be contacting the residents, the property owners? There will be no communication?
No, absolutely not. We do not contact anyone. It's entirely up to, if homeowners want to learn if they had a racial covenant, then they can certainly approach the University of Minnesota Libraries or us at St. Ben, St. John's. If we have the complete data set, we can tell them that, but we will never contact any property owners or homeowners.
Okay. Commissioner Persky?
Yeah. When we were first presented this, wasn't there discussion or talk about removing the covenants off the documents?
So any homeowner in Minnesota, if they find a racial covenant on their property, can go through a process of discharging the covenant. That does not remove it from their property records. I'll let Michael Quarry talk a little bit more about what discharging does.
Okay. Sure, yeah, discharge is depending on whether it's abstract or torrens, it's another document that gets put in the stack that says there was a covenant here, here's where it was. And it's a way of documenting that there was something there. And it's something that individual homeowners have found meaningful at Mapping Prejudice. We don't do that at Mapping Prejudice, but we know people may want to do that.
But on the original request, isn't that what was being requested?
I think there may have been some confusion the first time that was part of our request. That's something that groups have done separate from Mapping Prejudice, but that's not part of what we're doing.
Let me state for the record, there was a lot of misunderstanding, both ways, from your community and maybe from us, and the professor has assured me that she's going to address that. So.
Yes, and I understand there was quite a bit of confusion last time, and that's one reason we're here today is we want to clear up that confusion and make sure that we all understand the request. So in the original request, there was a request to waive county fees for the discharge process. And so the county recording fee is $46 if someone wants to discharge a covenant. And so that was a separate request on the original agenda, and we are not asking for that. We do have two donors who came forward. That's Brad Fisher at Edina Realty Title and Ken Holman at Centricare have offered to pay the fees for homeowners who would like to discharge covenants from their property records, but that is entirely optional. It is not, there is no such thing as a blanket discharge in which covenants are found and are immediately discharged. It's entirely optional up to individual homeowners. And I think in Minneapolis, what is it only 10% of homeowners? Less than 10% of homeowners even go through the discharge process.
And again, just to be clear, the resident can already do this on their own.
Yes.
Yep. Commissioner Clark.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. It sounds like, I mean, what was brought to us originally was a broader proposal, maybe from multiple groups. This is the skinny down, the direct piece that it had looked like at one point you didn't necessarily need board authority, but at this point the MOU really is needed to be able to utilize your software. And other groups may choose to use this, but from a broader historical mapping standpoint, this will help us have a more complete picture. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It just helps us complete the data set and know exactly what did exist, and then people can use that as they wish. Thank you.
Commissioner Notch.
So basically, once that data set is complete, there are organizations that could ask for that information and could solicit those homeowners if they wanted to discharge those. That's kind of what I'm
Commissioner,
hearing.
yeah, I think that's right. And some cities and counties have chosen to proactively mail things out, but that's totally their option.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Clark.
given the limited focus of this request, I'm going to move approval.
Okay. Commissioner Clark moves for approval of the MOU with the University of Minnesota. Is there a second?
I have a question after someone seconds it.
Do you want to second it, Commissioner Lansmeyer?
No,
Okay,
but I have a question after someone seconds it.
hardly, but,
He said he
I'll second
said he
for
has a
discussion.
question after it's second.
okay. So Commissioner Notch
I'll second.
seconds it. Just so I don't forget it, I would hope the expectation would be, so you've got these properties on a map, you've got them identified, and then potentially you would give them to outside groups. I would hope those outside groups potentially wouldn't contact me as a homeowner and call me names for having it on my property that I might not even know I have on my property.
Commissioner, that's something I can say with certainty. It has never happened. We've done more than 50,000 of these nationwide. No, that's never happened. It's been something that people have worried about, but this is not about guilt or a gotcha. I mean, I grew up on a house with the racial covenant on it. This is about helping people understand, like, what does it mean when you see this thing in their record? And that's it.
Okay, Commissioner Lensmeyer?
Yes, just one question. What problem are we solving?
Did you hear what he said? Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. So again, understanding the history of racial covenants is something that is commonly researched and taught in lots of different courses. And so students at the College of St. Benedict and St. John's University, again, just wanted to understand how many of those existed here in central Minnesota. And they were just unable to find them all using the county's database. And so they just asked for help from the University of Minnesota in order to finish finding what they started looking for.
Okay.
So what problem are we solving?
So the problem that, Commissioner, the problem that my students ran into is that they weren't able to locate all of the covenants that they were looking for. And so they asked the University of Minnesota with help to finish up their research.
Since the covenants are no longer enforceable, is what are we accomplishing?
Thank you for that question, Commissioner. You're correct that the covenants are no longer enforceable, but I'm a historian, so my job is to learn about and research and understand the past. And the history of racial covenants is part of our past in the United States. And so again, this is something that students wanted to better understand because they've learned about it in other classes, in other locations, and they want to better understand the history of the area in which they live. And so understanding the history of racial covenants is part of learning about our history.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Commissioner Clark?
Is the very practical problem that this specifically is attempting to solve is that the software that we currently, that you are utilizing can't actually find all of the covenants, and your software, the U of M software, would. So the MOU permits you to be able to finish up the project without it would not be finished. Is that correct?
Yes, Commissioner Clark, that's correct. So the practical problem is exactly that. ArcaSearch, the county database, has an older optical character recognition software, which means it's difficult to find things with a keyword search. We're looking through millions of property records, so you can imagine how long it takes to go through them individually. And so the University of Minnesota has a newer software system, and so they're able to find all the records that otherwise my students aren't able to find. So without the help of the University of Minnesota in this MOU, my students can't finish up their research project.
Commissioner Notch?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Just for kind of I guess, a curiosity, of the ones that you found, the 101, do you know, are they mostly in St. Cloud, or are they all throughout Stearns County, or?
Yes, so we found 5 neighborhoods in Stearns County. So there are 2 in St. Cloud. There's 1 in Cold Spring, 1 in Collegeville, and then 1 in Sauk Center.
Interesting. Commissioner Percy?
I got a question for staff, Randy and Mike. As far as this data and allowing them to have this data, can anyone use this data? First of all, once they have gotten it, then can anyone use the data that they've collected?
I think if,
Okay.
yeah, I think the MOU gets into that a bit.
Yeah, so basically, we get these records, but we don't like give everyone all of the records. We only show people pages from documents that we think contain covenants, and then we show them that, and then there's a watermark, and then it says it's not official. But we're not showing them the whole data set or anything like that.
And then,
Commissioner Persky?
And then as far as them doing the search on the data, is there any control that we have, or do we need to have any control on that they're not looking for other information? Is there, where I'm going with this, is that perhaps then another entity would want to come in and research our data in the same manner that they are doing, perhaps looking for some reason to do that. Question's twofold. First of all, would they be able to give information or allow information to another source, when they have the ability to look at that, or can someone else do that as well? So for a realty group, a group of lawyers, maybe looking for the potential for litigation where there might be hazardous waste or lead pipes, or maybe corrections that need to be done in the process in which the deeds were instructed or put together. So I'm just wondering would we allow other entities to come in and do the same? Or is this data protected so that other entities can't come in and take a look at it? Or I'm just curious.
Commissioner Bertram.
Randy?
Joe, so we get data practice requests all the time. And some of the information you're talking about is assessment data, which I know we get data practice requests on that too. So, and we do actually have sites where people can view these sets, right?
Yeah.
So this is available already now. What they're doing is probably maybe a little more automated search than we have, but this is available now. This is all public.
It's all public information.
Okay, but this automated search, do we have to grant them permission to do the automated search, correct?
Well, my understanding is they're getting the data in a certain format. Is that right?
Yeah, and Commissioner, I would say where the MOU only allows us to do this project. It allows us to run this process on these documents. We don't share those with other people. Yeah.
And Mr. Chair, it only allows
Commissioner
you to.
Clark?
It only allows because the MOU is controls what they can do and only they can do it. And it's only the public data. It's not any other data.
If Commissioner Persky, thank you, Mr. Chair. If someone wanted the data in a similar format, we'd have to go through the same process. And again, as we've heard, this permission is limited to this project for use by the university library. So yes, we could do it for somebody else, but we'd have to have some kind of an agreement.
And it would have to be, excuse me, Mr. Chair, it would have to be public data too.
Yes.
We're not obviously not giving anything that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Persky, thank you for that question. And I'll just draw your attention to the Memorandum of Understanding that's on the agenda packet. And this was actually altered and approved by the Stearns County Attorney. And it sets in place the legal language that says exactly what the University of Minnesota can and cannot do with those records. So this is something that Stearns County Attorney has reviewed, has amended to make sure that the records stay secure. And then as others have said, this is entirely just for this one data set for the University of Minnesota, and they will protect those records.
Commissioner.
Just to respond. And so you can see just with all the questions that we have here, we were going to put this on the consent agenda. And I wanted to make sure that at least we ferreted out all these things so that people have an understanding about what we're doing, rather than just talking to us as individuals and then having a blanket approval of that. So I appreciate that.
Commissioner Notch.
Yeah. Any chance, if this gets approved, that we could get a copy of the final report?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We will be happy to share what we find. And also part of the MOU is that we share back all of the OCR files with the county. So that is all information that we will return to the county.
Okay, thanks.
That's a good point. Then maybe just to one up that is share what you have now. I'd be curious. And then you made the point that we would make sure that this doesn't happen or that information doesn't. How big is we? Like how many people? You're talking several colleges. I mean, you've got several players in this, that if you've got the information and all of us have the information, one of us could potentially do that. And of course, hopefully we'd catch that and rein it in. We meaning us and you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, the only data that we would share widely is the final data set, which is just the covenants that we found. The larger set of information that the county would give us and then that we would process. We don't share that back with anybody except you. Like we would give that back to the county to do as it sees fit. So the only data that we publish is just the covenants data set.
Is this the same MOU that the other counties that you named approved?
The county attorney has made some changes here to make it more acceptable, but it's basically the same, yes.
An attorney made changes to a document? I find that hard to
We're
believe.
all shocked, yes.
Okay,
I'll go back.
Commissioner Lenzmeyer?
I'll go back to my original question. What problem are we solving?
I think that might be rhetorical, so we don't need to, you certainly tried to answer that. So I think we've exhausted this enough. So there is a motion on the table to approve the memorandum of understanding with the University of Minnesota on racial covenants. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Clark.
just really quickly, thank you again. For those who aren't aware, I mean, with those ones that were identified in St. Cloud, our old house, the one that we lived in for 25 years, was in one of those neighborhoods. And the way that we found out was when we went to go sell it. It wasn't in our first deed, you know, so people get different documents. And it'll be interesting to see on the map and for people moving forward and for students and for our History Center too, just to be aware of it. So thank you.
This is definitely a teachable moment for all of us because my 2 years that I've been on the board, this was certainly the messiest proposal that I think I've seen. And so we clarified that now from a different, and now again, it's on you to clarify that in your communities that they misread a lot of things. And again, you gave me my word that you're going to clarify that. So with that, thank you. Have a good day. Next item.
Thank you.
Steve had something.
Commissioner Clark. I mean, see, I don't know what I'm gonna, we gotta get name tags. I'm not gonna get this for a second.
You gotta put it right here.
Because she keeps asking questions, so I keep
I haven't
thinking.
even that, Mr. Chair, with all due
Commissioner
respect, I haven't even gotten to a Bertram level of questions yet. I'll get there.
I'm gonna have to do a map here, naming the names.
I'm the girl.
I have to change your hair or something.
I'm just curious
I am
if,
the female.
you know, years ago in banking, you got attorney title opinions. I wonder if title insurance, if these will even show up on, because now almost everything is title insurance. Be curious to see if they even show up
And Mr. Chair, mine showed up in
Commissioner Clark.
2018.
with title insurance.
Well, no, it just showed up when I went to go sell our house. So it'll be interesting to see where else it would, but that's where it showed up.
Did it show
was
up
when
on
the
the
title-
abstract?
Yeah, it showed up, and we didn't have an opportunity at that point to discharge it. All we could say is, holy cow. And we lived over in the Fernwood area. I mean, this was left over from St. Cloud Township from a really super long time ago. I mean, it was, at the time, it was when it had been a township and they put it in before it came into, I mean, it was just a very interesting history, which we didn't know any of it. So unless something weird has changed in the last 6, 7 years, it's gonna show up 7, 8 years.
Okay. Issues by commissioners. Commissioner Lenzmeyer, do you have something?
Yeah, the point I was trying to drive to, yes, I failed miserably, is that if there's something in your title that is now unenforceable, it has no impact. So it's great we solved this problem. What did we accomplish?
And my simple Spring Hill Farm Boy response to that would be, we're taking it, we're alerting the property owner that it's on it, and 2, we're allowing them or sharing with them a way to take it off if you don't feel comfortable. So it certainly isn't a big problem. It's not the first time we've solved something that wasn't a problem.
The problem, yeah.
Anything else you have, Commissioner Lenzmeyer?
Yeah, that's where my discussion started. St. Augusta Township farm boy to another. I don't know why this is here. If it's unenforceable, it's unenforceable. End of story.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Clark?
Thank you. There could be a number of things. I guess I'll focus on 2. One is for the public, the governor's budget proposal came out since our last meeting. The legislature started, and it's to say it's a unique year would be an understatement. Every year you say we've never seen a session like this, but this would truly be it. But the governor's budget proposal really would put a lot of burden on county residents, on counties, and a few of those items that are kind of surprising from a cost shifting is some cost responsibility with sex offenders, like we have any control over where somebody comes. Developmentally disabled waiver, huge costs there, the behavioral health fund, getting rid of the cannabis funds that were supposed to be coming. Hello? I mean, how on earth are we supposed to be doing any of this? So there's a number of pieces. It's going to be important to be talking with legislators. We will continue to do that. And then I guess the other thing is just how frigid it is out there. I was joking last week about in Minnesota, we just say it's cold, but it is so frigid out there right now. Everybody just be careful.
Thank you. Well, if anybody doesn't know that we have a new president and that we have a split legislature, then they're living under a rock, because that's all you're seeing. So, Commissioner.
Yeah, they might not know about the governor's proposals, though.
Thank you.
Kudos, Mr. Chair.
Just was gonna note, I can't make the Tri-County Solid Waste meeting on Thursday if Commissioner Lensmeyer is not gonna be there. So just letting you know that.
Well, he could do it remotely.
I think they have a Zoom option, so you
Yeah,
staff
I
might
think
have to.
I think they're working that out.
Staff might
Okay.
have to, yep.
And then,
Yeah, if it's remote,
okay.
If it's
Just a reminder too that Micah has their legislative forum, what is that, next Thursday, I think, down in Scott County?
And I heard the new chair is really an outgoing person.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know who that is, but I think she's in the room.
I can't point with my finger. My wife doesn't let me do that anymore. So.
I like the elbow pointing.
Yeah, congratulations, Terrell.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Persky.
A few things. First of all, we heard on the open forum, we have a need to respond to, I think, St. Joe Township and those local residents. They've been putting up with that whole issue for years, and it's about time, I think, we actually take a look at it. From day one, I think there was considerable deception, being told that it was going to be an orchard and cider making, and it's obviously evolved into more than that. So by all means, we need to have some accountability and some transparency on that issue. So let's take care of that, and I don't want to do it outside our realm. I'd rather take care of that in-house. Yesterday, Martin Luther King Day, they had a celebration at River's Edge. St. Cloud State did a nice job putting that on. Centricare was involved. The local mayor did his first speech. He did a nice job addressing the public. Sheriff was there. Thank you, Sheriff, for serving breakfast. That's greatly appreciated. And just a related issue for the sheriff and maybe for environmental services is cannabis. We put the ordinance in place and we're working on it. Next meeting, could we just get an update? What's happening with that? What's been the response? I'm just curious because I haven't heard a word. I don't know so it must be a limited amount because I haven't heard a word as far as the public reacting or entrepreneurs reacting. So maybe we just get a little update next meeting.
Okay. Anything else? No? Then just a couple items. Tonight's the Stearns County Municipal League meeting in Albany, just as a reminder. I did ask the chair, Jim Hemish, to send out a reminder, but that meeting is in Albany tonight. And then a former member, Bob Wensman of this board.
Yeah.
Randy, I didn't either, but I had it on my calendar.
Did you get
It's hard to go to something if they don't give us a notice.
I'll have to let
And
them know.
Mr. Chair,
I thought it was just me.
I won't be
Clark.
there tonight because we have a library board meeting.
I thought it was just me that I didn't see it, but they gave the dates for the meetings for this year. And so I put it on my calendar, and this morning when I looked, I thought, I don't have anything on that. So then I sent him a text, and he said, yes, it's in Albany tonight. So then I did suggest that he send out, I said, I'll bring it up at the meeting and send out another reminder.
I got Sauk River Watershed tonight, so.
Yeah, I've asked him several times to send us notice.
Sometimes even on our level, the committee notices or agendas or anything come out like a day or two before. If you don't have it on your calendar, you don't even know what's coming
Yeah,
up.
Mr. Chair, we've asked them to please give us written notice so we can get it on our calendars. And Allison is great. She'd put them on all of our calendars to make sure we have it.
Perfect.
Even the meetings we don't want to attend.
Exactly.
That's right.
I had
Please
no
send our
notice.
regrets.
I had no notice either.
See, then the notice did not go out.
So-
I'll make sure and let them know that.
Yeah.
Bob Wensman, I think Randy probably be the only one that would know about Bob on the board, or weren't you here yet then either? Bob Wensman from Sox Center, former commissioner for 4 years, passed away. And so I just want to recognize his service and him passing away. Those were turbulent years. Heine Dickhouse had been on the board for many years, and then Bob ran against Heine, beat him, and then Heine ran again and beat Bob. So Bob was on for 4 years, and then 4 years later, Commissioner Audi ran against Heine and beat Heine. So it was turbulent years in the 5th District back then, but certainly let's remember Bob Wensman. I think I sent somebody an email hoping that we sent flowers or something, but not sure what happened there. And then Bob Long, I don't think I can't remember this ever happening in my life, but Bob Long was a Stearns County Planning Commissioner with me back in the day. And he was also on the City of St. Cloud Planning Commission. Commissioner Lensmeyer appointed him to the county planning. Well, Bob and I kept in touch every 3-4 months. I texted him in October and, I texted him in November, and it took a couple of days, and his wife texted me back and said, Jeff, I'm sorry to say that Bob passed away in October. So I watched obituaries pretty close. I missed it. But again, he did 9 years on the Planning Commission, was a great public servant, and it's late, but certainly let's also remember Bob Long. So with that, we're going to go into a work session. So for now, we'll adjourn this meeting, and then do we want to break for 5 minutes or so? Okay, five minutes.